Welcome to Shadowed Tales Archive. Tonight's story is titled, The Dollmaker's List. Let the shadows speak. Part 1. The new address. I used to think monsters lived under the bed, that they had claws and teeth and glowing eyes. But monsters don't hide anymore. They knock on your front door, and sometimes they come wearing cardigans and smiles. It was a warm Tuesday in early November when my mom and I moved into the duplex on Sycamore Lane. She called it a fresh start. I called it too quiet. The house was nice enough, if you ignored the peeling green paint, the uneven floorboards, and the weird iron hooks hanging from the ceiling in the basement. I didn't know what they were for, and I didn't want to ask. Ellie, Mom said, nudging me toward the front steps, try to look excited. This place is good for us. I forced a smile. Sure, Mom. Great place. Smells like dust and dead dreams. She sighed. You're 12, not 35. I dragged my sneakers across the cracked porch as we went inside. Boxes stacked up in the hallway like cardboard soldiers. The kitchen was small, but had a weird charm. Ceramic fruit tiles on a backsplash, and one of those swinging diner doors that creaked every time you touched it. I didn't notice the house was attached, connected on one side to a nearly identical unit, until I heard the voice. A woman's voice from the other side of the wall. Low, soothing, almost a hum, like someone whispering a lullaby through cotton. Do we have neighbors already? I asked. Mom paused, wiping sweat from her brow. Yeah, the landlord said there's a retired woman next door. Lives alone. Her name's Ms. Adeline. Apparently used to be a school librarian. Cool. I'll borrow horror books and ask for overdue fees. Mom gave me that look. Be polite. Please. That night, while unpacking in my room, which, let's be real, looked like a hostage situation, I heard the lullaby again. Faint, melancholy, coming from behind the wall. It was so soft, I had to press my ear to the drywall. The melody was unfamiliar, old. It sounded like something you'd hear on a scratched record player in a dusty attic. And behind it, something else. Tick, 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 like a metronome or a sewing machine. I stepped back. Weird. That was my first night on Sycamore Lane. The night I first heard the song. The night I started having the dreams. Part 2. Ms. Adeline's Parlor. The next morning, Mom handed me a granola bar and a banana like it was a 5-star breakfast. You okay? She asked, stuffing car keys into her purse. Yeah, I lied. Just tired. Kept waking up. She leaned in. You sure it's not because of your phone? Mom, you took my phone last night. She blinked. Right? As she headed off to work, I was left alone for the day. No school yet. Mom said we'd start fresh on Monday. That left me with a 3-day weekend and no friends in town, which when I noticed things, small things, like how the birds outside our duplex never landed near Ms. Adeline's windows, or how the hedge between our porches looked freshly trimmed, except on her side, it was brittle and overgrown with tiny shredded feathers caught in the thorns. Around 10 a.m., a knock tapped on our door. 3 short, crisp raps. Knock, knock, knock. When I opened it, a woman in a pale blue cardigan stood on the porch. Her hair was silver, coiled tightly in a bun that didn't move even when the wind brushed past. Her smile was perfectly still, her eyes a glassy blue. Not warm, not cold, just still. Good morning, dear, she said. You must be Ellie. I nodded. Yeah. Hi. Are you? Ms. Adeline, yes. Her smile widened. I brought cookies. Oatmeal raisin. I hesitated. Thanks, but I... Just come for tea, then. Her hand, cold and papery, wrapped around mine before I could protest. My parlor is just through the shared gate. I do love meeting new neighbors. I didn't want to be rude. And honestly, I was a little curious. So I followed. Her side of the duplex was darker, older. The curtains were thick velvet, drawn shut even though it was sunny out. The smell hit me immediately, lavender, dust, and something sharper like dried glue or varnish. The parlor was filled with dolls. Dozens of them. Porcelain, cloth, wooden, even glass-eyed ones. Each one sitting neatly on doilies. Each one dressed immaculately in tiny hand-sewn clothes. "I collect," she said simply, noticing my wide eyes. "Each has a name. Each has a story." "That's cool." I didn't mean it. She poured tea into china cups, so delicate I was afraid to hold mine. "You're a sharp girl," she said. "Most children your age are glued to their screens. I imagine you read." "Yeah, a lot." "Good," she said, her voice lowering. "Stories teach us how to survive the things that don't make sense." I laughed nervously, like moving to a town where the houses smell like varnish and ghosts. She didn't laugh. Instead, she tilted her head slowly. "You've heard the music, haven't you?" My stomach dropped. I thought it was just maybe something from your TV or... "No," she said. "It only plays when one of them is ready." "Ready for what?" Ms. Adeline smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You'll understand soon enough. The song always begins before the name is added to the list." That was when I noticed it. On the mantel, next to the teacups. A thick leather-bound book, faded gold leaf on the spine. No title. "What's the list?" I asked. She ignored the question, gliding over to the fireplace. "Would you like to see how the dolls are made?" I stood. "Actually, I should go. My mom." "Your mother won't be home until after dark," she said calmly. "She won't even notice you've gone." That was too specific. I backed toward the door. "Maybe next time. Thanks for the tea." Before she could respond, I turned and hurried back through the gate, heart hammering. Back inside, I locked the door behind me. Twice. I didn't sleep that night. The music came back, louder this time, and beneath it, that soft tick-tick-tick again. But this time, it wasn't coming from the wall. It was coming from inside my closet. Part 3. The book with no title. I didn't open the closet. I just sat there, knees pulled to my chest, blanket wrapped so tight I could barely breathe. The ticking stopped around 2 a.m. The music? That stayed longer. By morning, it was gone, but I didn't feel better. I felt watched. Mom was gone before I woke. She left a note. Meeting ran late. Be home by 7. Left money for lunch. Love you. I didn't eat. Instead, I stared at the wall between our house and Ms. Adeline's. The drywall looked normal. Boring beige. No marks. No sounds. Still, I felt something just past it. Like the wall wasn't a wall at all, but skin. Thin. Veined. Pulsing. That afternoon, I did the one thing I swore I wouldn't. I went back. Not through the front gate, though. Around the side. Through the yard. Past the brittle hedge. Her windows were tall and old, with warped glass panes. One of them was cracked open just a sliver. Enough. I stood on my tiptoes and peered in. There was the parlor again. Dim, dusty, quiet, and on the far wall, the book. Thick, leather-bound, no title. It sat alone now, as if it wanted to be noticed. I couldn't explain it, but I knew that book had my name in it. Even though I hadn't seen inside, I felt it. I stepped back and nearly screamed. A face stared at me from behind the curtain. Not Ms. Adeline. Something else. The face was doll-like, but not plastic. Skin. Real. Human. The eyes, though too wide, too wet, unblinking. I bolted home, locked the door, drew the curtains, shoved a chair under the knob. Then I heard it. The knock. Not the front door. At the shared wall. Thump. 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 Like someone knocking from inside the drywall. I pressed my ear against it and heard her voice. Not Ms. Adeline. Another girl. Young. Shaky. Barely a whisper. "Don't let her see you sleep," she said. "She takes your name when your eyes are closed." My blood ran cold. "Who are you?" I whisper back. No answer. Only the ticking again. Faster this time. That night, I didn't sleep. Didn't even lie down. I stayed sitting at my desk, flashlight ready, eyes burning. At some point, maybe 3 or 4 a.m., I heard it. Not the ticking, not the song. Pages turning, like someone flipping slowly through a book. Then, just once, I swear I heard her say my name. Clear as day. Eleanor. Part 4. Isa, don't blink. I didn't tell Mom. She wouldn't believe me. And if she did, she'd panic and yank us out of town. Which sounded perfect. But I couldn't shake the feeling that leaving now, without answers, meant someone else might take my place. I didn't want to end up as one of those dolls. And I didn't want someone else to either. So the next morning, while Mom was at work, I walked to the public library downtown. It smelled like old paper and lemon polish, and the lady at the front desk looked like she hadn't blinked since 1987. I found the archives section in the back, a small room with yellowing newspaper clippings and binders no one had touched in years. I didn't even know what I was looking for until I saw the headline. 5th child missing in Sycamore District, police baffled. The article was dated 10 years ago. A girl named Leah Donnelly, age 9, vanished from her bedroom. No forced entry, no suspects. The photo showed a little girl with dark hair, a shy smile, and wide, wet eyes. I grabbed another article. 7th disappearance. Pattern emerges? This one was older. A boy. Same neighborhood. Then another. And another. 9 kids over 20 years. All between the ages of 8 and 13. All from the same 3-block radius. All gone without a trace. I swallowed hard. Then I found it, an editorial piece. A letter to the paper written by a retired teacher. The woman in Unit B on Sycamore Lane has lived there for decades. No one remembers her moving in. No one sees her shopping. She never ages. And yet, every few years, another child disappears. I stared at the line. She never ages. I thought about the perfect hair, the porcelain skin, the frozen smile, and the dolls. God, the dolls. Were they all? I shoved the papers into my backpack and left, heart pounding. But as I stepped outside, someone grabbed my arm. I yelped and turned. A boy, about 15, skinny, scruffy, wearing a gray hoodie. Whoa, he said, backing off. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you. You did. He glanced around. You live on Sycamore? Yeah. What? You seen her yet? The woman next door? I narrow my eyes. Why are you asking? Because she took my sister, he said. Silence. I'm Milo, he added. My family lived in Unit C, 2 doors down from yours. When I was 10, my sister Lily vanished. They said she ran away, but you don't believe that. He shook his head. I saw her, the night before, sitting in our backyard, talking to no one. At least, I thought it was no one. Let me guess, I said. Soft voice. Old lullaby. Tick, tick, tick sound. He blinked. You've heard it too. I nodded. I think she's, whatever she is, writing names into that book. And when she does, they start to disappear. She collects them, Milo whispered. My sister used to sew. She said the woman gave her little scraps of fabric. Told her if she stitched her name into something just right, she'd never be lonely again. My breath caught. Wait, your sister stitched her own name? Yeah. A sharp coldness ran through me. What happens if someone else writes it? I asked. He hesitated. I don't know. We stood there for a long moment. Then I made a decision. I need to get inside that house, I said. We need to see that book. I think the names are still in it. Milo looked at me like I was crazy. You'll end up just like the others. Maybe, I said, but if I don't, she'll keep adding names. He sighed. Then we'd better go tonight. While it's quiet, that night, we met behind the hedge. No flashlights, just the moon. Milo pulled a folded paper from his jacket. I sketched a map. I snuck in once after Lily disappeared. There's a side door in the back, always unlocked. My hand was shaking. I kept seeing the dolls, the ones on the shelves, the ones with glassy, silent stares. And I wonder how many of them had real names. How many had once laughed, cried, breathed? We slipped through the shadows, past the crumbling fence. And as we reached her back porch, I swore I heard her voice, faint and melodic, floating through the air, singing that same song. Only this time, the words were clearer. Little hands and button eyes, whispered names and silken ties, folded dreams in cloth and thread. Stitch your soul before you're dead. The door creaked open. We stepped inside, and the dolls all turned to face us. Part 5. The Stitch Names. We didn't move. Dozens of dolls sat in stillness on the high shelves, arranged like silent spectators in a church pew. Porcelain cheeks, painted mouths, each one dressed in fine, hand-sewn clothes, and each one now facing us. Milo whispered, "They weren't looking this way when we came in." I swallowed hard. Don't say anything else. Don't touch anything. The air inside the house was thick, like it had weight. It pressed down on our lungs, our skin, our thoughts. I felt dizzy, like gravity was bent here. The parlor was ahead, lit by a single lamp. And there it was, the book, sitting open on a small wooden stand beneath the painting of a tree stitched from black thread. No words on the canvas, just the dark branches stretching toward the ceiling like arms. We crept closer. I expected dust, age, maybe cobwebs. But the book was pristine. The leather cover looked freshly oiled, the spine unbroken. Gold leaf shimmered along the edges. Milo reached out, hesitated, then opened it to the first page. Handwritten lines filled the paper, dozens, maybe hundreds, each name stitched in real thread, not ink. Fine embroidery, blood red. I scanned the list. Lily Ortega, Leah Donnelly, Isaac Plimpton, Rose Grant, Daniel Stowe. Each name had a date beside it, like an entry, like an inventory, and at the very bottom of the newest page, Eleanor Ray, date pending. I stumbled back, heart in my throat. She already wrote it. I whispered. I didn't even do anything. I didn't stitch it. I didn't say it out loud. Milo pointed to the header at the top of the page. It's not always the child who sews the name. Sometimes it's her. What does that mean? He turned the page. The next one was blank, except for the faint outline of a thread, an impression left from stitching that had been torn out. Below it, a single phrase had been embroidered. One stitch undone, one soul released. I looked at Milo. Do you think? He nodded. We undo it. Maybe we can free one. Just as he reached to tear the threads, we heard it. The tick, tick, tick. Not from a wall. Not from the book. From inside the hallway behind us. We turned slowly. There stood one of the dolls. Life-size now. Skin waxy. Mouth stitched shut. Black button eyes sewn into where real eyes should have been. It was the girl from the newspaper. Leah. She moved stiffly, joints clicking like puppet hinges. I grabbed Milo's arm. Run. But he didn't. He stared, frozen. Lily, he murmured. That's Lily. It wasn't. The girl doll tilted its head. The seam along her jaw twitched. Behind her, another figure stepped into view. Ms. Adeline. Except now her bun was undone, her hair cascading in long silver ropes down her back like silk threads. Her arms looked thinner, bonier, her eyes wider. She didn't blink. Curious things, children, she said, voice like parchment tearing. So eager to become something permanent. Milo stepped between us and her. Why do you do it? He demanded. She smiled. Because broken things deserve to be preserved. Then she raised her hand. I didn't see what happened, just the sound of a snip. Like scissors. Milo fell. Fast. Like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Milo! I screamed, dropping to my knees. His body wasn't bleeding. Just still. Unmoving. Staring upward like his soul had been paused. I turned to her, rage and terror boiling together. You won't keep me here. Adeline's smile twitched wider. You're already here, Eleanor. You've been here since the day you opened the wall with your ears. I backed toward the fireplace, where the books still lay open. My fingers found the torn stitch, one that had already come loose. The page shifted under my palm. The name stitched beside it pulsed faintly. Leah Donnelly. I yanked. Hard. The thread came out in a single clean line. All at once, the air screamed. Not a voice, every voice. Dozens. Hundreds. Trapped inside the house, inside the dolls, inside the pages. And the house itself seemed to react. Books fell from shelves. The air turned frigid. Lights popped. I grabbed Milo's arm and dragged him back toward the door. As we stumbled outside, I turned one last time to look. The dolls weren't facing us anymore. They were facing her, Ms. Adeline, and they weren't smiling. Part 6. The Thread Between Worlds. Milo didn't wake up. I dragged him 3 blocks through the back alleys to an abandoned tool shed behind the church. Locked the door. Piled rusted crates in front. Sat there for hours, listening for footsteps that never came. His breathing was steady, but he wouldn't open his eyes. He wouldn't respond, like a wax figure with a heartbeat. That night, I didn't hear the music. I heard whispers, hundreds of them, soft as moth wings circling the air above us. And then, one voice louder than the rest. A child's voice. She wasn't always the Dollmaker. I jerked upright. Who said that? No answer. Just cold. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones, makes your teeth ache. I looked down at Milo, still unmoving. The whisper came again. You want to stop her? Follow the thread. There was no thread. Just splintered wood, rusted nails, and one broken mirror nailed to the shed wall. But when I looked into that mirror, I saw it. A thread. Thin, red, shimmering like spider silk. It hung in the reflection like it was strung from the ceiling, but when I turned around, nothing. Only in the mirror did it exist. I reached for it and touched glass. Except, I didn't. My fingers passed through. The world shifted, like a camera lens snapping into another frame. The shed was gone. I stood in a gray hallway. Walls stitched together from fabric, thick quilt squares, all hand sewn, covered in tiny names. Some I recognized, some I didn't. At the far end of the hall stood a door. Not wood, not metal, cloth, heavy red velvet, embroidered with that same stitch tree I saw in the parlor. The door opened before I touched it. Inside was a room filled with sewing machines. Hundreds of them, working without hands. Needles stabbing fabric, making tiny human-shaped forms. A little girl sat in the center. She looked 7, blonde, dressed in a powder blue school uniform. Tears ran down her cheeks, but her hands moved fast, threading needles, pinning sleeves, tying knots. I stepped closer. Hey, I said, are you okay? She didn't look up. She said if I stop, she'll sew my lips shut. I froze. Ooh, she didn't answer, just pointed, and from behind the fabric wall, the Dollmaker stepped through. But she wasn't Ms. Adeline now. Her face was younger, beautiful even, dark curls and deep-set eyes. Her body shimmered like she was only half real. I was a child once, she said, voice calm. Like her, like you. I backed away. What is this place? She walked toward me slowly, bare feet making no sound against the quilted floor. The seam between your world and mine. The place where names are written and forgotten. Where identity unravels. Where permanence is earned. You steal them, I hissed. You trap kids and turn them into dolls. I save them, she said sharply. This world is cruel, temporary. But here they're cherished. Here, they are forever. I shook my head. They're not forever. They're frozen. Alone. She smiled. You say that now. But haven't you felt it? The loneliness? The need for stillness? No pain, no school, no hunger, no noise, just the soft hum of needles and purpose. I saw it then. The girl at the table, Her tears had dried. Her mouth was stitched shut. One neat row. Black thread. "You used to be a child," I said. "What happened to you?" The dollmaker tilted her head. "I broke," she whispered. "They pulled me apart. One home to the next. One foster to another. People forget broken things. So if you decided to keep what you couldn't have, I decided to build what I was denied." Her smile turned brittle. "You're already part of the pattern, Eleanor. Your name is stitched. Your soul halfway across." She held up the book, the same one from the parlor, open to a blank page. But as I watched, her needle floated into the air, thread dancing between its eye like a serpent. "You can stay willingly, or I can sew you in myself." The air folded inward. The walls twisted, and I felt myself splitting. Like part of me wanted to go, to stop fighting, to become part of the fabric, to finally feel safe. But another part, the louder part, remembered Milo. Still asleep, still waiting. I ran, back through the velvet door, down the hallway of names, chased by that hum, the sound of threads tightening. As I burst through the mirror, I collapsed into the tool shed floor, gasping. Milo was gone. In his place was a doll. Same hoodie, same shoes, but button eyes and stitched lips. Part 7. The Needle's Choice. I stared at the doll. It wore Milo's hoodie, his jeans, even the frayed shoelaces he refused to tie. But the eyes were wrong, glossy black buttons. And the lips were sewn shut with the same blood-red thread from book. I dropped to my knees. No. He wasn't dead. He couldn't be. I touched his face. Still warm, but stiff, hollow. The thread at his mouth pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat trapped in fabric. I looked down, and in the crook of his arm, pressed tight to his chest, was something small. A torn piece of paper. I pulled it free, hands shaking. His handwriting. "Break the needle. Unmake the name." Break the needle. I had no idea what he meant, but I knew where I had to go. Back to that stitched world. The quilted door. The place where names were stolen and sewn. Back to her. I stood in front of the mirror again. Reached out. This time it was easier. Like the boundary had thinned. Like it wanted me back. The hallway of names welcomed me, its soft light casting long shadows. But this time, the names on the fabric, some of them bled. As I passed each square, tiny whispers leaked out. "Don't forget me. I used to be real." She took my face. I reached the end of the corridor and stepped through the red velvet door. The dollmaker was waiting. She sat at a loom now, larger than before. Strings of red, black, and gold threads danced between her fingers, forming figures faster than I could count. Her eyes didn't blink. "You returned," she said softly. "I knew you would." I stepped forward. "You said I had a choice. You still do." She pointed to a frame beside her, a new doll form, barely shaped. "That's you. Almost ready. Just one more stitch." I clenched my fists. "Let Milo go." She tilted her head. "I can't." "Then unmake me." Her expression shifted. "What?" "Because if I'm not real, if I'm fabric, then I can go where thread goes. Through the book, into the seams. I can undo what you made." She stood. "You don't understand what I made." The walls began to ripple like cloth in wind. "I made peace," she hissed. "I made silence. I gave him stillness. I took away fear." "No," I said. "You took away their names. You took away choice." Her face cracked, just slightly, like a porcelain glaze under stress. "Then make your choice," she spat. "Stay and be sewn, or fight and be torn." My eyes darted to her hand. She held the needle, the same one that sewed the book, the mouths, the eyes. Gold and thin, humming faintly with energy. I lunged. She was fast, but not faster than regret. My hand closed around the needle. It burned. Huh. Alive. It screamed without sound. She shrieked and reached for me, but I spun and stabbed the needle into the floor. Not fabric, not wood, but soul. The ground split. All around us, the names on the walls unraveled. Threads snapped. Children's voices rose in a great, rattling wind. She's breaking it. It's coming undone. The Dollmaker let out a cry, not in anger but grief. You don't know what you're doing. I yanked the needle from the ground and snapped it in two. Everything collapsed. The quilted world folded inward. Threads pulled back into nothing. Names flying loose like ash. And then, blackness. Not sleep. Not death. Just stillness. I woke in my bedroom. Morning sunlight filtered through the blinds. Birds chirped. Milo sat in the desk chair, eyes bleary but alive. You're awake, I breathed. He looked at me. So are you. We didn't say much after that. Didn't need to. When Mom came home, we lied. So we snuck out to explore and got lost in the woods. She grounded me for a month, then made waffles. But when I looked out the window toward Ms. Adeline's half of the duplex, it was empty. No sign of her. No dolls in the window. No sound behind the wall. Gone. All of it. Well, almost all of it. Because 2 days later, while cleaning my room, I found a small scrap of fabric under my bed. A name stitched into it in faint red thread. Eleanor Ray. But it was half unraveled. I keep it in a box under my bed now. Not because I'm scared. Because I think some things aren't meant to be erased. They're meant to be remembered. Part 8. The Dollmaker's Legacy. 2 months passed. Autumn slipped into the edges of winter, and Sycamore Lane felt ordinary again. No music through the walls. No ticking in the night. Just the creak of heaters, the crunch of frost, the smell of Mom's burnt cocoa. Yet every morning before school, I opened the cedar box under my bed and checked the scrap of cloth. The red thread had unraveled a little more. Half my first name free now. Eleanor. The rest still caught in knots too tight, as if the fabric feared letting go completely. Milo and I didn't talk about the dolls. We walked to class together, traded homework answers, pretended life was normal. But sometimes his fingers twitched, as though remembering stitches that had once closed his lips. He'd rub the scar at the corner of his mouth, barely visible, but he knew it was there. One cold Saturday, we met at the library. Not to research. I just wanted someplace that smelled like old paper instead of scented candles and parental worry. We sat in the back, flipping pages without reading. Then Milo whispered, "She's not gone." I frowned. "The house is empty." "Yeah," he said. "But look." He slid a local newspaper across the table. Front page headline: Mural of children appears overnight on abandoned mill. Authorities investigating. The photo showed a crumbling brick wall covered in a vivid, hand-painted scene. Dozens of children holding red strings that disappeared behind a dark velvet curtain. Faces blank, eyes wide. I felt my stomach turn. Milo tapped the byline. Mills on the east side, 10 miles away. Same district. He swallowed. Same symbols. Same trees stitched in black. We sat in silence, the library humming around us. Finally, I said, "If she's starting over, we need proof. Something people will believe. Or at least something we believe," Milo replied. That night, we biked to the mill. Wind whipped around broken windows, the moon a pale coin above the smokestacks. Paint fumes lingered, fresh despite the cold. Up close, the mural was even worse. Tiny red letters were hidden inside every child's outline. Names, so faint you'd miss them unless you knew where to look. Leah, Isaac, Rose, Daniel, and at the center, Lily. Milo's breath caught. He reached out, but stopped short of touching the paint. Then we saw the doorway. A heavy iron door ajar, darkness yawning inside. On the handle, a single crimson thread fluttered like a flag of surrender. We didn't speak, just pushed the door and stepped in. The mill smelled of sawdust and rust. Our flashlights cut thin beams through the dust motes. Old conveyor belts, silent now, stretched like black tongues into the dark. Somewhere deeper, a light. Flickering, warm. Candlelight. We followed. The room at the end was circular, lined floor to ceiling with broken mannequins. Their limbs hung by wires, their torsos hollowed, cloth hearts beating faintly. In the center stood a table draped in velvet. And on the table, a new book, smaller than the last. Leather still wet from fresh dye. Its pages were blank, except the first line stitched in gold. Every thread needs an heir. Footsteps echoed behind us. She emerged from the shadows, not as Ms. Adeline, nor the porcelain beauty from the stitched world, but as something in between. Hair half silver, half ink black, eyes shining like glass marbles left in the sun too long. "Children," she said softly, voice threading through the stale air. "Why do you insist on fraying what could be whole?" Milo stepped forward, anger trembling in his shoulders. "You broke your promise. You said you'd give them peace." "I did." Her smile never reached her eyes. "But peace is fragile. The world keeps tearing. I must keep sewing." I felt the scrap of cloth in my pocket buzz, an impossible vibration like a trapped mosquito. "You wrote my name," I said, "but I tore the page. I broke the needle. You shouldn't be able to sew anymore." She lifted something from the table, a slender shard of gold, reforged, glinting in the candlelight. "Metal remembers," she whispered. "Even when snapped, it longs to be whole." I taught it to one again. A soft chorus rose in the room, the mannequin's cloth hearts thumping in unison. Milo's jaw clenched. "Let them go." "I can't." Her eyes glistened, almost sorrowful. Unraveled souls drift. They need form, structure. They need freedom, I snapped. She sighed. "Then choose, Eleanor. Take the needle, wield it yourself, and stitch their names into flesh. Give them weight and warmth again. Or leave and watch them fade." The shard hovered between us, suspended by invisible thread. I felt every heartbeat in my body, every memory of my name, every whispered plea from children lost in seams. Could I do it? So their essences back into bodies? Would that make me another Dollmaker? Milo touched my arm. "There's a third way," he murmured. "Break the book." I looked at the blank volume. Leather pulsed like skin beneath a bruise. If we destroyed the vessel, the names might scatter, free but anchorless. Would they survive or dissolve like mist? The Dollmaker saw my uncertainty. "Creation or erasure," she coaxed. "The world refuses half-truths." My hand drifted to the cloth scrap in my pocket. Only 4 letters still bound by red thread. The rest fluttered loose, alive. I thought of Leah's wide eyes, Lily's unfinished laughter, Milo's silent scream when his lips were sealed. Thought of being frozen, perfect, forever, and alone. I reached for the needle, but only to hurl it into the nearest mannequin. Gold-pierced cloth. A heart exploded into dust. At the same moment, Milo leaped, smashing the book with a rusted gear he'd grabbed off the floor. Leather tore. Pages spiraled upward in a blizzard of white and red. The room howled. Candles guttered. Mannequins convulsed. Limbs jerking free of wires, collapsing like empty coats. Names, threads whirled around us, glowing, singing, crying. Some streaked out through cracks in the brick into the night. Others coiled, searching for anchors, finding none, fading like sparks. The Dollmaker screamed, not pain, not rage, loss. She lunged for the falling pages, but they burned to ash at her touch. The mural outside cracked with thunder. Paint bled, children's silhouettes melting into rain. And then, silence. Candle smoke drifted in thin gray lines. The table stood empty. Where the Dollmaker had been was only a circle of blackened dust, shaped like the trunk of a tree. Milo and I staggered out of the mill. Dawn bled across the horizon, turning the broken smokestacks into silhouettes. He looked at me, exhausted. "Do you feel it?" I nodded. "Quieter." We biked home without talking. That evening, I opened the cedar box. The cloth scrap lay still. The last 4 letters, Nori, were loose, the red thread curled beside them like a dead worm. My name was whole again. I thought that was the end, but stories, stitched or spoken, rarely end so neatly. Last week, a postcard arrived in our mailbox. No return address. Front, a photo of a seaside town, gulls wheeling over quiet waves. Back, in looping crimson ink. Every thread needs an air. Some knots never truly loosen. Thank you for reminding me of that. Hey, I keep the postcard with a cloth scrap. Some nights, when the wind slides under the gutters, I swear I hear a faint metallic click, like a needle tapping against glass, followed by the softest hum of a lullaby no one remembers how to sing. So I leave the box closed, because broken things deserve to be remembered, but not always repaired.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. New stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.